Are you still playing a game?
Of course, I should reach DEFCON 1 and launch my missiles in 28 hours. Would you like to see some projected kill ratios?
Is this a game, or is it real?
What's the difference?
When I was young, the first game machine I ever had was the Commodore 64, and I remember being 6 or 7 years old and being completely infatuated by, games like Karateka or like Impossible Mission. But then the Nintendo Entertainment System happened, and I remember being exposed to Super Mario Brothers, just like, all of us. And, like, everything fucking changed, and I was fascinated with this stuff. What even fascinated me more than what was on screen was what was beyond the edge of the screen. What's just outside of the frame. Because we were, like, constantly moving to the right and discovering. It seems so obvious, but at that age, at that time, that was like sort of magical. You'd suddenly find yourself in a dungeon or at the treetops or underwater. You'd encounter like dragons, but the idea was simply to get from point A to point B. Just survive the gauntlet before you. And that's where it really started for me. Like this crazy love for video games, I think. I got Metroid one day, and that game truly just melted my 8-year-old brain. It was mean and intense, and it had atmosphere. Like, Zebus was a very dangerous place, and I was made fully aware of this as soon as I pressed the power button on my Nintendo, dude. Why am I talking about Super Mario Brothers and Metroid? Because these games, back when I was a little kid, before the internet, before everyone knew all the tricks and secrets, these games took all summer to beat. Like months of playing a game and losing or being lost. Mega Man, I had that game for a year at least before I beat it. But because it took so long and it was so difficult to me as a little kid, when you beat the game, it was a huge moment because you earned it. It took so long, to beat these games back in the day when we were kids. Save the princess, annihilate the mother brain. Incredible and unforgettable to a little kid. And as a grown-ass man, I'm still chasing that same feeling in video games. I want a real challenge. I want real losses, and I want real wins. Warm and fuzzy nostalgia. Fuck that noise, Jack. I want an intense video game experience, personally. Most times, the Shmup 1cc culture delivers that same journey, I think. But it's obviously even more intense. You can watch runs on YouTube and get help online with, these STGs, these shmups. But with these games, you still have to perform. You have to do it. There might be an easier way through, but it's not that easy. There's no real overpowered build or strat you can look up. You have to do it. But I think maybe that's what I'm chasing. That same, oh my gosh, I did it moment from when I finally beat Mega Man when I was a kid. Some years ago, I was perplexed by so many YouTube reviewers giving really positive reviews to shmup ports that just felt so laggy to me. They were unplayable. And in the comment sections of these videos, I found that nobody but me was saying, hey, wait a second, this isn't what these games are supposed to feel like. Something is totally not right here. And then because of this, I ended up finding Electric Underground and Mark MSX, and he was actually talking about the lag. And what's more than that, he ended up he was measuring the lag and talking about how it matters. It does matter. And this is what I'd been saying for so long, and I'd finally found this place on the internet where all of a sudden things started to make some more sense. Another thing I found perplexing for the longest time was that like modern gamers would say things like old games just had shitty controls and new games are just so much better, like old games were just obsolete in that way. And for the longest time I couldn't figure out what they were talking about, because I was playing old games still on a CRT and the controls are sharp as hell. Like there are a lot of bad games, but like something like Batman or Ninja Gaiden, like those games feel really sharp, dude. And I couldn't figure it out. And then I realized, I think a lot of gamers had gone back to play the older games under slow modern TVs, shitty ports, and or emulation, and didn't realize that input lag does matter, and they'd been playing inaccurate representations of these games. And here was somebody actually quantifying this latency. That was my gateway into the online shmup scene. Right at that time, I also discovered like Shmup Junkie. Before that, I'd loved Shmups. These games, in my opinion, were the coolest looking and sounding games that exist. Fighting games too, but in my personal opinion, these shooters had the best visual design and best sound design. These are some of the best video games ever made, if not the best video games ever made. Just on the level of like style, I find it a bit shallow to say these games are only 25 minutes of content and just the same thing over and over again, when somebody has never actually even given these games a full day in court. And as far as the actual game design goes in these games, there are people on YouTube who are much better than me at articulating exactly why these are some of the best made video games, and this is maybe the best genre ever created. And I understand that the fighting games are up there too, but I have less experience with the fighting games. So anyway, I was discovering the online shmup scene. I was looking at even the smaller channels. These guys were all saying that the one credit clear was not impossible. It's not like as hard as you think was the message I was hearing. And some of these guys even appeared to be having some sort of spiritual experience with these games. And I'm thinking like, this all seems so crazy. I can't do that. Beat Dodonpachi Daiojo without continuing? That's fucking insane. That's impossible. So at a certain point, I just got fed up with the FOMO of the modern gaming industry. Like, I just didn't give a shit anymore about playing whatever the newest game was, or being led by some retro gaming influencer. I think I got convinced at some point that it might be possible, and I wanted one of these clears under my belt because I actually play these fucking games. So I decided to plug my ears with loud music and set up a save state for once, in Stage 3 in Dodonpachi Daiojo. Finally I said, I want to see what this is all about for myself, and Stage 3 seemed so impossible at first. I mean, I was dying so much and so fast, but I was watching other people's runs and just accepted the fact that I was gonna lose a lot, and just had zero ego about it. But little by little, I started to figure it out. I was actually making progress and learning, just dying over and over again, but soon I had figured out the first half of Stage 3. Every day after work, I would tune out and practice for a few hours. And pretty soon I had pretty much figured out Stage 3. And I'm thinking, if I can figure out Stage 3, I should be able to figure out Stage 4. And if I can learn Stage 4, I should be able to do Stage 5. Like, this is fucking possible. Maybe. And I'm gonna keep trying. And so I fucking just kept practicing. And I just kept trying. I was determined. And then I decided to do some full runs. And suddenly I'm realizing that I'm halfway through Stage 5. And I have 2 lives left. And it's like, this is gonna fucking happen right now. What I couldn't see before, I could see now. I could see the spaces between the bullets opening before they even did. I had practiced so much, I knew where to be. This thing I was convinced was impossible, this thing I never thought I'd be able to do, I was about to do it. Every game I had ever played from Commodore 64 on had led me here, to this moment, and nothing else mattered. It was the most intense experience I had ever had playing a video game up until that point, and that was my first clear. Heart pounding, adrenaline coursing through my veins, and then soon I was thinking, alright, what's next? And all those guys on YouTube, man, they were all right. The 1cc style of play was this hidden gem to me that I had just discovered, like the greatest secret in video games. And I'm pretty sure there's a lot of people out there who are just like me and only just need just the right little nudge to push them into reaching into what they think is the impossible and chasing that first clear. Playing video games this way, there's nothing like it that I've experienced. I suppose generally speaking, as I sit here writing this, that's one of the reasons I enjoy Shmups. Attempting to reach into what is perceived as the impossible and earning the win, like we used to. My last video was a review for ZPF, which is a game I really enjoy. In that video I said that ZPF wasn't aimed at the shmup scene, and to my horror it seemed like I was being misunderstood. I wasn't trying to say that entire subgenres of shmup weren't hardcore enough for shmup players, because I don't really believe that. What I meant was, you know, like if you put a game on a Genesis cart only, that's more of a retro gaming scene thing. That's more of a collector's scene kind of thing. One of my biggest fears is being misunderstood. I also had mentioned that there's a big difference between the shmup scene and the retro gaming scene, in my opinion, but I never even really spoke of what the differences are. In the way I see it, really doesn't have anything to do with the genre of game people play or are into or whatever. From my point of view and in my opinion, the difference between the shmup scene and the retro gaming scene, other than its size, let's say, is that the retro gaming scene is full of people spending thousands of dollars to make old games look quote-unquote perfect, whatever that means. And the shmup scene is full of people spending thousands of hours playing a game in emulation to get really good at it. That's the way I see it. The video game industry, to me, seems to depend on FOMO, like it runs on it. Fear of missing out on the next piece of content. Even if, you know, the next big game is pretty fucking mid, a lot of people will play the game just for fear of being left out. The retro gaming scene is similar, except it's all about the next new product to play old games. In the retro gaming scene, the size of your collection and the shit you own is your gamer cred. In the shmup scene, somebody playing a ROM and an emulator on an old laptop can be a god. And I know these different sections of the internet, like, you know, the shmup scene, the retro gaming scene, they all sort of like overlap, sort of. And please believe me when I'm saying I'm not trying to like label people into certain areas. And you can definitely be an enthusiast in one circle and in another circle as well. I'm speaking generally. I'm not speaking about any individuals per se. I'm just talking about the different communities as a whole in a general sense from my observations. So right about here, I'm going to bring up something that I was kind of going back and forth about. Like, should I say something about this? And I've gotten some advice from some friends who have been around longer than I have, like in the YouTube scene, you know, making videos and stuff. What I'm being told is to be less concerned with what people think of me and being a nice guy and just speak my mind. So I'm gonna say this about Earthion. All I'm gonna say about that game right now is, man, it's fucking cool. Just so cool. We all kind of figured this out now, I think. It might not be your cup of tea, but it's certainly really cool. And I personally, I'm really digging it. I think it's a really good video game. I will say I think this about the game too. I think it's even better than ZPF, to be honest with you, and I really liked ZPF. But I definitely recommend making the purchase on Steam or whatever platform you want to play the game on. Make the purchase, buy the game. Is kind of what I want to say. about Earthion, really. I also want to mention this about certain YouTubers out there, not in the shmup scene, and I think at this point I'm not really doing any real damage by bringing this up, by saying this. I'm certainly not against emulation at all, but dude, you know, like, if you rush a video out about Earthion as fast as you can, like the day after or the day it comes out, and your main focus in the video is that you're fucking playing it on Mister, but in the same breath you're like, hey everybody, support the dev. I gotta be honest, man, I kind of feel like that's some sucker shit, you know? Like, spreading that information around was like the focus of your video. Like, the game is so good, but the first thing I'm gonna do, like in the thumbnail, is like let everybody know that I'm running it on Mister. Come on, you couldn't wait a couple days? I don't know, I just had to bring that up. I think there's something a little whack about that, but I also think that that's the retro gaming scene and the FPGA scene. Unfortunately, see that kind of stuff. I wouldn't be really comfortable doing that. If I rush a video out about a game that I think is really cool, I'm just gonna be like, yo, this game is fucking cool as shit, and everybody should check it out, you know? Also, I wouldn't do like a full-on review video of a game before I felt like I'd spent enough time with it. You know what I mean? That's another thing too. Like, I might shout a game out, but I wouldn't like do a full review. But that's just me, and I decided that I'm gonna fucking say that, cause man, fuck it. I got 1,300 subscribers and I have nothing to lose. One last thing about Earthion, I promise, and then I'll move on. Also, I want to say that the ROM being dumped, I don't think is going to hurt sales of that cartridge. In other words, I think collectors are going to want that cartridge no matter what. There aren't going to be very many collectors out there who were going to buy the cartridge, who all of a sudden now are like, I'm not going to buy the cartridge because I can just get the ROM free. They're going to want the cartridge. In fact, myself, I'm not even much of a collector anymore. I wasn't going to buy the cartridge, but now I think I might buy the cartridge, actually, and I wasn't even fucking going to. Also, the other thing that nobody's talking about is the final boss in Earthion, and this is going to be some spoilers, so I'm going to let you guys click away for a second, but fair warning, spoilers inbound. The final boss in Earthion is fucking rad, dude. It's a fucking space goblin with titties, bro. Fucking space titties. What else do you fucking need to buy this game? By the way, I want to make something very, very clear. All of my opinions in this video are exactly just that. They're my opinions and nobody else's that I'm aware of. So everything I'm saying, I'm speaking for me. I'm not speaking for any sort of like community or group of people. This is all me. The retro gaming scene is where I came from, and I was a game collector for years. Technically since I started working at 15 years old. So I'm not immune to like wanting, you know, the wall full of games and jumping through hoops to make them all look and sound amazing. But I fell into a rabbit hole where influencers were leading me down, and I eventually realized I was spending probably more time modding and maintaining hardware and calibrating and tinkering than I was actually playing games. It seems to me though that in the shmup scene, the biggest channels and the smallest channels actually promote playing the games and reaching for a real challenge in the games. I remember when I started this channel back up and uploaded my first shmup video, I posted a link to it on Reddit, and I don't even know how Reddit really works, but one of the first comments I saw in the comment section on my channel was "Welcome aboard." Something I never mentioned on my channel is that a long time ago I worked at an arcade in Los Angeles called Family Fun Arcade. It was actually in Granada Hills, or as it was commonly known as FFA. FFA was a very famous arcade in the fighting game community for a while. The competition at FFA was about as fierce as it could get. For a time, Justin Wong was employed there. His job was to just like be there and draw a crowd. Many other legendary game players were there all all the time. In fact, Maximilian Dude even made a video about FFA when it finally closed. I was never a competitive fighting game player. I got a lot of joy in setting up a new game, like a new cabinet, and watching everyone have a really great time playing it. I worked like a dog at FFA, just trying to help the owner keep the doors open, honestly. My blood and sweat was literally in the carpet of FFA when it closed. The owner also owned Super Arcade, by the way, when it was still in Walnut, before Mike Watson took it over. So if anyone out there actually questions whether or not I'm truly down for these games, well, that's a little bit about who I am. I miss FFA, but now my arcade essentially exists on the internet. Being able to share not only gameplay footage with other players and thoughts and ideas as well over the internet is kind of amazing. Of course, I wish we could all be standing around a Kitsui, cabinet, watching each other play and shooting the shit, but that's just really no longer possible for the most part for most of us. I grew up in Los Angeles, by the way, and it was really awesome. Sort of melting pot to grow up in, and it was pretty far out. The Hidden Fortress is my YouTube channel. One of my biggest fears is that I will offend somebody I don't mean to offend. Anyone who I mean to offend is just fine being offended, fuck them. But often I worry about pissing somebody off I don't mean to. I don't hang around like many other Discords, but that's only because I'm very shy. And again, this channel has a lot to do with me sort of challenging myself against that. I'm not scared of people being mean to me or anything like that. It's just a weird personality thing, I think. I just kind of like to hang back. By the way, something that's cool to me about the whole Schmupverse is how accessible it all is. For example, I remember when Androdunos 2 was announced, and it was wow, that's so sick. I can't wait to play it. What a strange sequel to make, but I'm so down. The trailer was so rad. It was a huge deal in gaming news, and I played it a lot when it first came out, and pretty much got my ass kicked. But I will be back to Androdunos 2 for sure. And a few years later, I discovered this whole online shmup scene place and on the internet, and I've met a whole bunch of people, and I see Spiders STG is the fucking world record holder in Androdunos 2 all of a sudden. Then I'm like,
I know that, dude.
I've had little conversations with that dude here and there, and he seems pretty friendly. There's actual game devs actually making good fucking shmups. Real deal video games who were for real about this shit, and they're right there making games, and you can reach out and actually talk to them about their their game, and they seem super chill. That's so fun and cool to me about the whole scene. And some of the best players in the world are all over the place. They're just chilling right within arm's reach, and that's just super cool to me. Maybe that's corny, I don't know, but I just think that's far out. So I don't really know about any drama that might be going on in other Discords or on the forums or anything like that, because like I said, I'm kind of off on my own little island. Even though I am sort of slowly coming out of my shell a little bit more. But so I do worry about accidentally stepping on toes, or being a dick, by accident, or stepping on a landmine that I didn't know exist. And if that happens, it's really just out of ignorance. I feel as though I'm still a guest here amongst the shmup scene. So this video is really, really long, and I'm gonna try and cut it short here. The original version still has 10, 15 more minutes left to it that I have on the timeline, but I'm gonna wrap it up. I don't know what I was thinking. I just kept writing and writing. But I want to say a few more things, though, just about the Hidden Fortress and myself, I guess, if anybody can still stomach any more of that. My experience in the shmup scene, shmup community, has been really good so far. People are very, very, very cool. It seems a lot of the best players have been really friendly and really encouraging and welcoming. I'm always trying to convince new players or even old players to make videos, because I think it's really valuable in the shmup scene. Sometimes people tell me that they're thinking about starting to make some content in the shmup scene, and I always tell them to absolutely do it. And don't be afraid of fuckboys doing fuckboy shit. They're on the internet, they can't actually do anything anything to you. And YouTube can be very, very helpful actually when playing these games, because I found that I've gotten the most help when uploading failed runs, like just the best advice from people. I don't think I would have ever gotten some of my clears if it wasn't for other skilled players, you know, giving me advice and tips. So it's valuable. What the Hidden Fortress is really all about is like entertainment. Like if I can mildly entertain people, I'm doing pretty good, I feel. You know, I don't really do like skill-based content. It's more about like a journal of myself, like sort of progressing through these games and hopefully getting a little bit better. I feel like I might be getting a little bit better, but I think it happens very, very slowly. I mean, a tiny bit better. One of my favorite things to see on my channel is sometimes somebody will say something like, hey, your video inspired me to get back into Shmups, or your video inspired me to get this clear in XYZ game, or to whatever, like beat my personal best score, whatever it is. And that's actually really cool, because ShmupTubers got me into playing these games a lot more seriously, and it really is worth it. It really has paid off. This last year of playing these games and making these videos has really been like some of the best times I've ever had playing games. Big win for me is when and if I can actually bring new players into the shmup scene. That's actually pretty huge for me, and that's definitely a big goal for the Hidden Fortress. Way back when I started making videos, I didn't think really anybody would subscribe or anybody would really pay attention. In fact, I kind of figured I would just get my balls torched off like for uploading a fucking video about shmups. But what happened was I actually ended up getting subs. I think like every other video I would post a link on Reddit, like in the Shmups Reddit, and say like, hey, check out my video. And what happened was I hit 1,000 subscribers, and I stopped doing that because I got kind of freaked out, because it was like, oh shit, people are actually watching my stuff. But lately I've been thinking about actually growing the channel, and like, you know, like what do I want to do with that, and what direction do I want to take it in. So I'm not actually sure like how to grow my channel. I don't want to be obnoxious and just like spam the shit out of, you know, Reddit or arcade projects or anything like that. But that definitely is on my mind, and that's something that I'm thinking about for the future. Recently I had to close my Discord, by the way. So the Hidden Fortress no longer has a Discord channel, unfortunately. There is no more Hidden Fortress Discord. But you know, you could always send me a DM and chop it up if you want. But I think honestly that's what the Hidden Fortress is really all about, is like helping beginners like myself either get their clear or to try and inspire new players to play these games a little more seriously. Because again, it was ShmupTubers who inspired me to reach for bigger challenges. And if I can pass that along, I think that's so cool. You know, like if you don't like these games, or you just don't want to reach for a clear, that's fine. But I swear to you, it's not as difficult as it seems, and it is worth it. Everything is better when you have to reach for it. I guess that's what I'd like to try to do, have fun here and convince players just like me to just play the games, join the shmup scene. I made a video a little while ago where I was jokingly asking myself if I lost my mind, and that's why, you know, like all of a sudden I really love playing these games this way. The answer is obviously no. These games really are that good.